तो मैं सब प्रेजेंट करूँ? I'll pin the page and I'll show the. Very good evening, everyone.
Okay, good evening, everybody. I should I begin with my presentation?
Hello, sir. How are you? I'm Girik. I'm so sorry. Actually, there's some glitch at Ritika's end, because of which I think we are not able to hear her. But no worries. A very warm welcome to you, sir. We are glad to have you here between us. And yes, sir, you can begin with the presentation. Just before that, I would like to brief the participants about the event that we are doing today. So this is basically the climate care, which is the first edition that we are launching this year, along with FAMSA's copy. This event is mainly directed for creating awareness among the participants about the day-to-day relations that climate is having, along with like how it is affecting. Um, I'm so sorry, everyone. Just how climate is including our day-to-day medical life as well and the medical channels. So this is dedicated to that. And also, like many of you might be aware, this is also the we also have the antimicrobial week coming up, which is starting in the next week. As you might know, the future doctors, scientists, and policymakers, it is our responsibility to look beyond the climate and the clinic. The environment which we are living is truly shaping the immunity we build and the diseases that we are fighting. So this event is truly dedicated to that, for which we have our very own speaker, Dr. Francisco from Italy. So again, a very, very warm welcome to you.
Thank you very much for the kind introduction. I start sharing my presentation.
Absolutely, sir. Thank you.
I sent my request.
Ritika, can you stop sharing the screen, please?
Okay. Okay, can you see? Can you confirm that you see the my screen?
Just a second, so sorry. Oh, yeah, sir, your screen is visible.
Okay. So once again, thank you so much for this invitation. I am Francesco Segala, an infectious diseases specialist and a researcher in infectious diseases and public health. And since some years now, I am focusing on this topic, on the topic of the ecological and climate crisis and how it affects the infectious disease epidemiology and human health in terms of infectious diseases. The, I am. I will uh, proceed with the presentation covering those topics. I prepared a kind of an introductory presentation, but I will skip the basic physics and the basic etiology of climate change because I believe that you know already very well. Like, I don't know if somebody of you already seen those climate stripe. And this is a very effective, in my view, a very strong graphical representation of what is happening to our atmosphere and to our ecosystem as a whole. Because the one you see, the horizontal line is the mean temperature in the last 2024 years, and each vertical line is how much the mean temperature of that particular year is distancing itself from the global average. And as you see, it's pretty clear, right? Also, if you add to these infographics also the carbon dioxide level concentration, you can clearly see that the steep rising of the global temperature is a direct consequences of the increased concentration of these greenhouse gases. And needless to say, this is purely a consequence of human activities, of, I would say, of industrialization and capitalism, basically. So we are here, yes. And this is one perspective, but then there are several other indicators that also are showing us the situations we are right now. We are not talking only about atmosphere temperature. We can also talk about ocean temperature that is increasing a lot. This is an article that I recommend everybody to read because is one of the landmark article of this group, this research group. And you see in red the values for 2024 and in blue the values for 2023. And you see that in many indicators, the measurements are really crossing historic levels, unexperienced levels so far. And this is goes along with an increase in GDP, which is the main point here, and then with an increase of fossil fuel consumption and meat per capita production, etc. This is basically a result of deeply deranged relationship with the natural world. This also not to forget that we are not only speaking about global temperatures. I guess that many of you already know this concept or is already familiar with the concept of planetary boundaries. We have identified several 9 planetary boundaries, and those are all indicators that support human life on Earth. And as you see, as far as 2023, 6 out of 9 of those ecosystem services are being lost, are already outside, let's say, the comfort zone for our species, human beings. Because this, I mean, something that doing infectious diseases and doing epidemiology always forces you to remember is that we are a part of the ecological world. We are a species that is following the ecological laws. So even if capitalism, even if economy doesn't seem to believe that this is simply the truth. And what is happening on human health is basically the manifestation, the symptom of this crisis, of this relationship crisis with the natural world, how it manifests on human beings. It manifests in terms of health. And as you have already introduced, I really like the concept. We are the guardians of this. And so all the information I'm sharing with you today, I hope that will empower you in the future, or also today, to defend, to be a guardian of ecological health, of planetary health, not only of human health, just because there is basically no such a difference. And so you have several dimensions of human health disruptions that is a consequence of the ecological and climate crisis. You have consequences in terms of water quality, in terms of the frequency and the extent of heat waves. And I think that if you're based in India, you know it very well, but we know it very well also in Italy. Only last summer, on June, more than 300 people died in Milan. And we're speaking about excessive deaths that were not supposed to happen without the heat wave we experienced. And then you have also problem in terms of mental health, in terms of extreme weather events, in terms of air pollution that is affecting our cognitive faculties. In terms of mother and child health, you have more during increasing temperature, you have more preterm births, stillbirths, you have developmental failure, women are failing to breastfeed, and etc. Food and water insecurity is another huge problem that is only going to worsen, unfortunately. But today we're going to focus our conversation mainly on infectious diseases, which is also a quite complicated issue. This is just as a brief introduction. I've worked for the WHO 1 year and a half ago, and my role was to follow the epidemiology of all the diseases that were, all the outbreaks that were happening in that region that during the time was experiencing an historical drought that lasted almost 2 years and was followed by extreme rainfall events, flooding events. And the consequence of this flooding that followed the drought was that all these outbreaks happened at the same time. You see, cholera started in Kenya, Ethiopia, Sudan, Somalia, and Uganda, conjunctivitis, dengue, malaria, measles. Why we are gonna explore a little bit the reasons why cholera, dengue, and malaria and yellow fever, vector-borne and waterborne diseases are gonna increase during extreme weather events and climate change. But why measles? Because measles is an incredibly vaccine-sensitive disease. It's very contagious, as you know. And so as soon as the vaccines are not being delivered, measles is always rising, but immediately rising. And that was happening in Ethiopia at the time. So let's start with few words about vector-borne diseases. So, this is always fun to say, mosquitoes are by far our greatest enemy in the animal world. They kill more than 700,000 people per year and are much more deadly than all the other animals we are used to consider as such. Even more than snakes. I know that in India, snake bites is a major problem, it's a neglected disease, but still, mosquito are killing so many people because they don't only transmit malaria, which is a huge problem mainly for children in sub-Saharan Africa, but they are transmitting a lot of other viral diseases like dengue, chikungunya, Zika, and so on. And the relationship of this vector and the climate is quite complicated. So this table is basically sending this message that is complicated because it's not only a matter of mean temperature or maximum temperature or temperature variation, but it's also a matter of rainfall, seasonal of rainfall pattern, of season length, And not all the time, also this is an important concept, not all the time an increase in temperature or an increase in rainfall is associated with an increase in malaria incidence or in vector-borne disease incidence. There are several times in which this is an inverse relationship, like the temperature increases and the incidence decreases. And we're going to say a couple of more words about that. In general, what we are experiencing, mainly in sub-Saharan Africa now, is that the climate suitability of both the Anopheles vector and the Aedes vector is globally increasing. Is increasing in terms with climate suitability, we mean the capacity of the vector of survive at certain climate conditions. The climate conditions are being more suitable for the proliferation of the vector. So we see that the vector is proliferating more on a wider geographical area, on a higher altitude. This is very important, and also for a longer period of time during the year. So this basically translates in an increase in both the peaks and the baseline of the epidemiological transmission of vector-borne diseases. And this is the main figure, because I would say, as every biological process, every biological being, there is a perfect comfort, in this case temperature, but it can be any kind of factor. There is the comfort zone, and the comfort temperature for Anopheles is 25 degrees. It's between 25 degrees and 26 degrees. So the regions of the world, which means that the regions of the world in which right now the mean temperature, the mean annual temperature is, let's say, 23 degrees, are going to experience a massive increase of malaria incidence, right? While the regions of the world in which the temperature now, the mean temperature is 25 degrees, since let's say that the mean temperature increases of 1 degree, which is what we are experiencing, is 1.5. The epidemiology, if we start from 25 degrees, remains the same. And there are other regions in which the mean temperature is higher than 25 degrees, in which global warming is actually decreasing the incidence of malaria. And this is why another thing I should add to this slide is that the curve of the Aedes mosquito, so Anopheles mosquito, malaria, Aedes mosquito, dengue, chikungunya, Zika, and so on, arboviral diseases, the perfect temperature, the most suitable temperature for this vector is 30 degrees, okay? So what we are assisting right now in sub-Saharan Africa is a shift from malaria to arbovirosis. This is not really apparent because in sub-Saharan Africa we lack of diagnostic capacity, and so there are not many centers that can monitor the incidence of those arboviral diseases on a molecular level, like doing a PCR, for example. So what researchers do, is that they measure the cases of fever during the rainy seasons. So cases of fever that peak during the rainy seasons are most likely due to vector-borne diseases, right? And we are seeing that in those areas in which the mean temperature is closer to 30 degrees, you have an increased incidence of non-malaria fevers. While in those regions where you have a lower mean temperature, the most likely cause of fever during the rainy season is still malaria. And so what we're expecting is that in many regions of sub-Saharan Africa, we will shift from malaria to dengue and chikungunya. This is happening also in Italy, like the Mediterranean region is the one warming up faster, actually. The fastest warming region in the world is actually, we are even speaking about tropicalization in this region. And every year we are seeing autochthonous outbreaks of dengue and chikungunya. and these outbreaks are increasing in number, in frequency, are increasing in dimensions and in length every year. And this is basically a consequence of the progressive colonization of this very invasive and very effective mosquito, which is the Aedes albopictus and the Aedes aegypti, that are like they find perfect climate conditions in Europe and in Southern Europe, and also they are very good in causing outbreaks in urban settings. Okay, we already mentioned this. Then there is another fact we should mention to understand the epidemiology of vector-borne diseases, which is not solely a consequence of temperature, but also is a consequence of disasters. Disasters or, let's say, social crisis of any kind. This can be due to the passage of a cyclone. Actually, a cyclone is the perfect event that causes malaria outbreak because on one side it floods and it provides a lot of a lot of perfect places like the one you see in the pictures where the malaria mosquito can breed, like tires or any kind of small ponds where it's sufficient for the mosquito to lay thousands and thousands of eggs. And at the same time, an extreme weather event is also affecting the healthcare system and is also affecting the capacity of people to respond to an outbreak. Like, for example, if you have a flooded road, you cannot use that road, and so drugs cannot come, rapid diagnostic tests cannot come, and people cannot treat themselves. And so you have, at the same time, an increase in the incidence and increase on the morbidity of this disease. So more people are dying as a consequence. And this happens, look, this happens not only in case of, as a consequence of an extreme weather event, but it happens also in case of war. For example, in Sudan, we are experiencing a very high incidence of malaria right now. And also something that we should know is that this convergence of crises, the ecological crisis, the climate crisis, the inequality crisis, the conflict crisis, and so on, is threatening decades of progress in fighting malaria. Like if you read the last two World Malaria Report, 2024, you see that the trend, the improving trend that we described in the last 20, 25 years stopped, and now it's going backwards. Actually, every year now we are reporting more cases of malaria than the year before. You remember, I think, what happened in the 2022. This is just an example where 2 million people in Pakistan lost their homes and almost 42,000 people got dengue during that crisis. This is also what is happening in another example, what is happening in Ethiopia. In Ethiopia, you are seeing, like, how do you read this graph? Every line is the epidemiology of malaria for a certain year. And the red one is 2023, and the light green one is 2024. And as you see, Ethiopia is experiencing an astonishing increase of the cases of malaria. Just think that in 2019, Ethiopia was reporting not even 1 million cases, like 900,000, and today is reporting more than 7 million cases. So basically the system is completely unprepared. And this is because Ethiopia is mainly on the highlands, and in the highlands, the mean temperature is getting closer and closer to the one that the Anopheles vector prefers. So now let's close the chapter of vector-borne diseases and open the one of waterborne diseases and cholera. There are some similarities, but why cholera? there are several waterborne diseases, diarrheal diseases, gastroenteritis, but cholera is the most important one in terms of the climate crisis because it is by far the most climate sensitive pathogen we know. As soon as there is a climate shock of any kind, almost in the private zones where you have an outbreak of cholera. And cholera can be also life-threatening because during severe cases of cholera, you can lose up to 1 liter per hour of water. So this means that you could die in a few hours. And even if you are very healthy, but you are a bit unlucky, let's say. And why is so climate sensitive? Because cholera stays in the phytoplankton, so on the estuarine areas and on the coastal areas, and it needs some salt. It needs a special, also special environmental condition to thrive. And when there is an extreme weather event, so you have a flooding crisis, and all the phytoplankton that was stable on the coastline or on the river line, it goes back to the land and it spreads the bacteria all around. At the same time, during a major climate event, you lose your wash conditions, so your water and hygiene conditions. Maybe even the wastewater flows back into the houses. And so basically you have no way to avoid catching cholera. And once somebody catches it, it spreads it to the whole community. So yeah, this is why it's so explosive. We are speaking about explosive outbreaks. And this is happening the more and more, and is very climate related, also because also for Vibrio cholera, we can speak about climate suitability. Here is a climate projection of which part of the sea would be suitable for the proliferation of Vibrio cholerae in 2070 if we go on a business as usual scenario. And then, as you can see, almost everywhere in the world we could get cholera in the near future. Okay, and well, yes, it's clearly this is a consequence not just of climate, but as we already mentioned, is a consequence of a lot of structural inequalities, a lot of social determinants. Yeah, I'm focusing this presentation more on Africa because this is where I spent most of my time in the last year as a researcher, but it's the same everywhere. Like those conditions are replicating everywhere in the world. And something also we should know is that, as it was recognized by the United Nations, climate change is not only acting in increasing the incidence, okay, as we saw with climate suitability and extreme events, etc. But is also acting in worsening the causes, the determinants of these diseases, because it's increasing inequalities, is increasing conflicts because we have less resources, we have less drinkable water, and is increasing political instability. So is acting as a threat multiplier. And this is a reason more why we should urgently stop it. Okay, few data about Mozambique, I think we can skip. And let's pass to antimicrobial resistance, which is also a very important topic. I am sorry that because all those topics could be discussed much more than this. Today we do an introduction because unfortunately I don't have a lot of time today. Let's say 15 minutes more. And so I'm going a little bit fast, also because I would like, if you have, to answer to your question at the end. So, what is the issue with antimicrobial resistance? As you might know, antimicrobial resistance is the capacity of bacteria to survive even when exposed to an antimicrobial molecule. And this capacity is contained, it's the result of several mechanisms, but the most prevalent ones are enzymes, like ASBL enzymes of carbapenimases and so on. And those enzymes in the family of bacteria of Enterobacteriaceae, gram-negative bacteria that stays in the gut and that provoke most of the nosocomial infections, antimicrobial resistant infections. Those enzymes are coded on plasmids, so on volatile genetic material. And if you increase the temperature, you stimulate a lot of bacterial processes. First, you stimulate proliferation. And so bacteria proliferate more. And also you stimulate the gene exchange between bacteria. So bacteria are proliferating more and exchanging more genetical informations. So we have empirical evidence from the United States that clearly associates the minimum temperature with the prevalence of resistances. And then at the same time, now we're going to speak a bit about the ecological crisis, but this is deeply interconnected with also with antimicrobial resistance, because you have increase in temperature, yes, but also you have completely unregulated use of antimicrobials in the food industry. You have deforestation, you have wastewater contamination, you have contamination that goes in the urban landscape, but also in the rural environment. It contaminates drinkable water, it contaminates the water that we use for agriculture. So this goes deeply into the ecosystem. Now, last part of the presentation is going to be a bit different because we are going to speak about the ecological crisis. So far, we introduced mainly the concept of climate crisis. And with ecological crisis, we mean a crisis of biodiversity that is the result of several processes like land and sea use change, overfishing, land use change for meat production, basically. That meat production, remember that it's responsible for 80% of deforestation and is responsible for 70% of all the land in the world we use for food production, okay? So it's a major problem. Then pollution, species overexploitation, climate change also is contributing to the biodiversity crisis, and also the spread of invasive species like Aedes aegypti, for example. And why we are interested in the ecological crisis? Because the ecological crisis, the biodiversity crisis, is increasing the incidence of zoonosis. And what is a zoonosis? A zoonosis is a disease that you get from another species. And you get it from a spillover event. I guess that many of you is already familiar with these terms. So a spillover event is that moment in which a virus, generally a pathogen, passes from one species to the other. And this happens a lot. This happens a lot. This is the basis of 75% of emerging infectious diseases. So this was the case for every time you get Ebola, every time you get rabies, every time you get influenza, every time you get like new viral hemorrhagic fevers. This is a consequence of a spillover event that got into the community and evolved into an outbreaks. And there are several issues here. No, we cannot go through all of them, but just know that there are diseases like HIV that after the spillover event, it's almost impossible to stop them. And for example, for HIV, the secret is the asymptomatic phase, because there is, as you know, like you have the mean window of time from the day you get the disease to the day you develop the symptoms, because you are entering into the AIDS phase. This time window is on average 7 years. And so in those 7 years, you spread the disease and you feel completely healthy. And this is what made the HIV pandemic absolutely unstoppable. And also it began as a zoonosis. And why the climate crisis will increase the incidence of zoonosis or spillover events? Because many corners of the earth are becoming unsuitable to life, to animal life, not only to human life. And so this means that a lot of species in the future are gonna gather in the same areas, the freshest, the most fresh ones. And since those species will share the same environment, they will also share viruses. And it's not the case that those environments will also be the highest populated areas in the world. And so it's very likely that this trend will continue if we don't act. Okay, let's keep this. A classic example of these dynamics is with Nipah virus. Nipah virus is a very rare disease that has been described so far only, I believe, in Malaysia and India, in southern India, and is a viral encephalitic disease with a case fatality rate approaching 40%. So a very deadly disease. And the first time it was described, also researchers could define perfectly the let's say the pathophysiology of this spillover event. What happened? This is all documented. 1998. It happened that a particular island in Malaysia was intensively deforested to leave space for a monoculture of palm oil trees. And bats are the animal reservoir of almost all viruses we know. All viruses with zoonotic potential, of pandemic potential we know, they survive into bats because bats are very peculiar animals and they tolerate a lot of viruses. And so basically the population of bats had to change and to escape because their houses was being destroyed. And the first place they found in which where they found nutrients to survive was a farm with pigs and fruits. So they started eating fruits, and the remnants of their meals and also their feces were being eaten by pigs. And pigs, as you know, are very genetically similar to human beings. And so they were able to spread directly the virus to the farmer. And farmers were dying of encephalitis. So this is a very classic example, very effective example. But we see more or less the same pattern also every time we have an Ebola outbreak. On this slide, you can see a picture of forest fragmentation. So the green pixel are the impacted forest areas. This is Central Africa. And the white pixel are desert areas. And the orange or yellow pixels are area of forest surrounded by areas of non-forest, so of area of forest fragmentation, as the article describes. The small triangles are the place where the last Ebola outbreaks happened in Central Africa. And as you see, especially in Uganda, here, you and also also a lot in Congo and etc. But you can clearly see that those outbreaks happens where in the most deforested areas. And also one small word about the food production industry, which is completely mad. Because if I would design, like seriously, if I was here and he was giving me the task to design the best way to get a pandemic, I would create this. I would create uh, a massive animal exploitation building to stock thousands of pigs in awful conditions and in an area of high biological diversity, high viral sharing, and so as soon as a small virus gets into this population of very immunodeprived, immunodeficient pigs, is gonna immediately spread in the population of the pigs and then go back to humans. This is what happens, what is happening with the H1N1, actually, what happens also in Argentina in 2009, sorry. Because the influenza comes with the migratory birds, then usually these viruses go to another species, which is cows or pigs or like farm animals, intensive farmed animals, and then they pass to humans and they cause pandemics. Okay, now let's try to provide some informations on a more wider perspective. I believe that many of you, maybe most of you, heard about the concept of carbon footprint. Well, the concept of carbon footprint is the one that counts, measures our personal impact on the ecological and climate crisis. In this case, the climate crisis, if you want, because we are measuring it in terms of tons of carbon dioxide. So, according to this ideological concept, everybody is responsible. And our lifestyle is the main key. This is not completely false. Actually, this is partly true. For example, our dietary choices play a big role in shaping our ecosystem. If we start eating less meat, we would live immediately in a better world. Also because meat, as you might know, especially beef, is a direct polluter, is a direct climate polluter because cows are emitting methane, which is a greenhouse gas much more powerful than the CO2, but also with a much shorter half-life. So if we cut our meat consumption, our beef consumption, we are immediately going to see an effect on the global temperatures because methane will disappear very soon, while carbon dioxide stays for decades, unfortunately, in the atmosphere. Well, so it is important, but what you should know is that this concept was not invented by climate scientists, it was invented by big oil. Because they didn't want to get all the blame for the production of this crisis, which they have, of course. And so they employed a communication company that manufactured this concept for them. It was British Petroleum in particular that used this communication strategy. So the main thing is that they knew very well. All big oil companies had their own climate projections. They knew very well that they're going to screw up the ecosystem with this business model. And what did they decide to do? They decided to prioritize profits, and they didn't care. Not only they didn't care, but they started a misinformation campaign, and nobody and they put into discussion basic concepts as the human, the anthropogenic responsibility of climate change, the existence itself of climate change. I mean, they just spread misinformation for decades. Now they are changing tactics, but they did it for decades. This is an Italian company that was doing the same. We have reports from the 70s. They knew very well, and they decided to keep going on that business model. Another thing is that you should know is that it's not only a matter of private companies, is also our states are participating to the crisis because they're working in very close partnerships with corporations. And just for you to know, this is a little bit outdated data, but still today, the amount of public subsidies, which is the red line, that our governments are using, so our tax money that our government are using to help fossil fuel companies to decrease in the price and so on, is higher than the whole Africa GDP. So yeah, this is also a political issue. And but the real responsible are those ones, are those 1% richest people that they consume alone alone a big portion of our climate budget. Just think that the 10% richest people are responsible of half of the emissions we have in the atmosphere. And yeah, so it's very good to speak about dietary choices. It's very important as to speak about personal responsibility, but the real responsibles are for sure, are the super rich and the corporations. So this is a small infographics also that we used for our review that you can recover if you want. You can read it, where you can find all the concepts I am explaining today. Is this one? And yeah, but let's come back to the beginning. So what we can do in the face of this polycrisis? We have a big role to play as part of the broader health community, of the global health community. I really like that first slide of guardians of the health, because we are, if you are mainly students, I guess, no? You are studying a lot right now to one day to become doctors. And when will you be doctors? You will be the one who will respond to the health issues, okay? If there is some health issues in your community, people will gonna ask you why, what can we do, what's the problem? And so you will be entitled to answer for it. And you will be entitled also to point the fingers towards the real culprit of this situation. If you will experience a huge dengue outbreaks or a huge cholera outbreaks, you will have, in the name of the health community, you will have to ask to your governments to reduce the fossil fuel production, to reduce the deforestation, to respect the natural world, because our health is completely, deeply interconnected to the health of our ecosystem. There is not such a difference. The difference is only helping the profit-minded approach of capitalism that is destroying our planet and is destroying our health, our global health. And so what you have to understand, I mean, the key message of this brief talk is that climate change is an health problem. Yes, the ecological crisis is an health problem. Yes, but is mainly a political problem, an economical problem, and you will be able to say that this is not good for human health. This is not good for planetary health or for animal health, and you will have the responsibility to go on with this fight. Okay, thank you so much. If you have questions, I am available for let's say 5 minutes. I'm sorry, but I'm really on a rush.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for that incredible session. Every slide you shared today, whether it was Ethiopia's malaria cases jumping from 9 lakh to 7 million, or how climate change is stretching the transmission season by 40 extra days, really made us realize how fast things are changing around us. Your explanation of cholera, how floods, sea level rise, and even tiny things like phytoplankton play a role made something complex feel very real and very human. And the part on Nipah virus honestly hit hard. Seeing how deforestation, El Nino, and changing habitats pushed fruit bats closer to farms and homes, and how that eventually led to the 1998 Malaysia outbreaks with a 40% fatality rate. It showed us how interconnected our environment and health truly are. It reminded us that when ecosystems break, disease don't just appear, they spill over. More than the science, your passion and clarity reminded us that behind every number and every outbreak, there are people, families, communities whose lives are changed forever. On behalf of all of us at Climate Care, thank you for giving us your time, your energy, and your heart today. Thank you so much, sir. And if we have some questions, hmm, hmm. Is there any question who want to ask?
Ritika, you can share that PPT, please. And so, as Ritika said, my colleague truly mentioned all the points. She covered everything, I think. And generally, so it was an amazing session to hear to you. And I think it was an opportunity for us that we could have a we had an opportunity to listen to your talk, and generally we would love to have much more of a views whenever you are free once again.
All right, you have my contacts, you have my WhatsApp number, you have my
Yes,
email also, definitely.
yes, we do
Uh,
have, and we
yeah.
generally insist our participants also to indulge in such topics. And if in case of any doubts, I would suggest I would really like the attendees of our meeting to raise to answer to go ahead. You can also post your questions in the chat box.
Okay, I apologize, but today I don't have much time.
So
I had the time for one question, if there is. I cannot read it on the chat bot.
so I do have one question.
Ah,
What was your motivation for diving into the climate? It is not something from a PPT, but yeah, this is something which I wanted to ask you.
all right. Well, my motivations began during my student years also, and it was when I started informing myself about what was happening, about the climate crisis. At first, I got very scared about it. You know that feeling that now today is described as climate anxiety. I got a lot of it at the time. And when I was out from this emotional experience, I started realizing that I had to do something, that this could be reverted because this is completely man-made, human-made, so it can be easily reverted. And since I was studying medicine, I said, okay, now is the time to use this knowledge, not only for my patient, but maybe also for my broader community, also for helping the building of a more ecological society, and also to convey some political messages. And that's why I decided to do advocacy, basically. And then I began to get interested in research, and I found out that research was a very good tool also to bring your messages, to deliver your messages. Research is incredibly powerful if you do it properly. So more or less, this
And
is
it
my
was like
experience.
so exciting. You all came here.
Okay, is there another question?
Uh, just one more question, sorry, from my end. Like, this is much more of a policy-oriented question, I would say. Like, in your personal opinion, like in your personal views, like, how would you assess the impact of the American president withdrawal from like the major climate commitments, like the Paris agreements, on global climate action? Because, as you mentioned, it is something which we are facing on everyday basis. Like, what does this signal, like US being such a major you know contributor for the pollution as well, and also I would say one of the major contributor towards the funding for these. But again, the US leadership, how would you assess their role now?
Yeah. It's true that if you look at the political landscape today, we might feel a little bit discouraged. Uh, it's also true that the election of Donald Trump as the president of the United States is going in a completely opposite direction where we should go, because he is basically this president is basically bringing the interest only of the corporation, only of the super rich, and he doesn't care about. He doesn't even understand the ecosystem, people. He doesn't even. He cannot. Is alienated from life and from the natural world. But I think that this is not necessarily a bad news. This also could bring to good consequences because the result of the United States losing their leadership on their climate leadership is that other actors can take this place. And for example, China is leading the industry of renewable energy, of clean energy. China is producing almost 80% of all solar panels in the world. And also India, I guess, and African countries have have a role to play in this. I think this is the time where the US hegemony can be put into discussion finally, and maybe also developing countries can impose themselves as climate leaders. And so yes, maybe not all the bad will lead to worse consequences, but we have to hope. We have to hope. Like this is a personal choice. This can be framed as a personal choice. You wake up in the morning, you decide that you trust humankind. That's it. Otherwise, we are not left with many options. So thank you so much. I have to go,
Thank you,
and
sir.
please do not hesitate to reach me out. I'm sharing my email address in the chat right now. And if you need to go to dive deeper into some of the arguments we touched today, I I will make myself available. So thank you, thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you, sir. Participants, we will be sharing the link for the questionnaire in a minute. Ritika, can you move the slide? Can you change the slide, please?
Yes, sir.
Ritika,
Yes, sir.
can you change the slide?
Yes, sir. So,
It is still not visible.
it's not visible. Okay, wait.
Okay, don't worry. Yeah, okay. So this was something which we were planning to do at the very start, but because of a technical glitch at our end, which I truly apologize to each one of you, uh, we were not able to begin the meeting prior, 10 to 15 minutes prior than the scheduled time. So yeah, but like I still think we can still do it. Like, what is the first word that comes to your mind when you hear the word climate, and how can you think of relating it with medicine? You can post your responses over the chat box also, or if anyone is, yeah, you can post your responses over the chat box.
I don't know why it's not sharing. Where it's sharing.
Okay, no worries. Saksham, can you share the screen, please?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so this was something which we were planning to do at the beginning.
You can type whatever you think that comes to your mind when you hear the climate health in the chat box.
This is just to blow off some steam before we start the quiz. So, interconnectedness. Absolutely. Kashish, would you like to explain like would you like to say, like, why do you feel they are interconnected? Like, and how our speaker was also able to explain the interconnected between the climate and our health. Okay, let's move on to the next slide then. Saksham, about the health conditions relating to the climate features. Absolutely, yeah. True. Uh, okay, so this event was brought to you by the Games UP team, the Games Jammu Kashmir, and the Federation of the African Medical Students, SCOPY. So for this, I would also like to extend my grateful. I'm very grateful towards SCOPY. Saksham, we can skip these slides. Uh, we can directly move on to the quiz slide, please. Interconnectedness. Could that healthy climate and a healthy person can go hand in hand? Yeah, true. In the day-to-day condition, I think that is very much relevant, especially here. Like in case of India, I think where I am living, since my college is very much close to Delhi, I feel that is very much that is something which see in my day-to-day condition, also in my hospital OPD. So yeah, a lot of patients for hypersensitivity reactions or the asthma. Guys, so this is the quiz link. You can scan this QR code and you can attempt the quiz. And the quiz will be live for 10 minutes. And the criteria for the certificate of merit is the completion of this quiz and getting 3 out of 5 questions correct. Uh, Nishant, okay, climate health is more vulnerable for poor communities. Yeah, actually, whenever we used to go for the community visit, there was I still remember there was a place where there was a some muddy pool sort of thing, and there were 2 or 3 families which were allotted to my batchmates, and during the time of the Viva, uh, the external literally dived very deep into the like about the malaria, the cholera, and the related diseases. So yeah, in Delhi and Jammu Kashmir, as well as is due to the prolonging increased temperature of yeah, absolutely. And I think India is one of the greatest contributors to this. So yeah, true. Saksham, can you also share the link for the quiz and the chat box for our participants?
Yes, sure. I was about to. The link has also been provided in the chat box. If anyone is not able to scan the QR, they can directly follow the link to appear for the quiz. Remember, it is for 10 minutes only, so please fill your applications fast.
So as I'm able to see, we have already started to receive some responses, and in the meantime, I would like to make an announcement for our participants. As a tribute to the antimicrobial week and also to our speaker, we are launching an event which is a very brief event where we are welcoming all the essays from our participants. The theme for that is environment to examination room, how climate shapes health. I will also be sharing this over our WhatsApp group. The best essays will also be featured in the GIMS journal and the GIMS newsletter, depending upon the feasibility. Saksham, can you move on to the next slide, please? Guys, you can join our WhatsApp group where we are posting all our latest updates. This is the group not only of the Jammu Kashmir and the Uttar Pradesh team, but in fact, it's a national group for all our events that we conduct across the nation and across the borders. So, for much more exciting webinars, you can join our WhatsApp community. And also, we are starting with the calls for the national team, which are currently ongoing. So the interested students can also connect and get the link through the WhatsApp community. Absolutely, Asha. I'll be sharing it over the WhatsApp group. Just a second, please. Uh, Guys, we also have a feedback form which we request all each and every one of you to fill, which would help us to improve ourselves in the future. And also, the phase two of this event is on 20th of November with Dr. Shweta. She is the professor at the Department of Biochemistry and also a climate care activist, currently servicing at United Medical College in India. Saksham, can you also share the feedback link in the chat box? About the certificate, so there are two hands of the certificate. The certificate of participation, which will be released within 24 hours, and another is the certificate of merit, which will be released within 48 hours. This is a maximum limit, but we will be releasing it as soon as all the issuing work is done by all the three teams involved. Participants, you can also check the event about the essay which I have shared in the group. You're most welcome to share your opinions, share your thoughts, and also how do you think we can tackle these problems that truly are an upcoming problem for us. And also, I think you can include about the COP30. Thank you so much, Aryan. Guys, we will be closing the link for the quiz in next 5 minutes, I think, Saksham, right?
Yes, within 3-4 minutes, it will be closing.
Okay. You can attempt the quiz, and now we will conclude the meeting. Looking forward to meet you all at the phase two of our event.
Thank you, everyone, for joining in.
Thank you, Aisha. Thank you, Shivam.